knows Secretary Vince. Can you tell us more about personally what your experience is in digital transformation?
Right, so let me just talk about my really very quick one or two liner background. All right, so I haven't been in the BI space from the start as a student. All right, I studied IT, yes, but I think in terms of my job, there's one particular incident that made my job meaningful. Right, that's when 9 years back, my daughter, who actually started with the analytics experience, I got her to take up a very simple data set. And guess what? What data set did she use? She used a data set of the Disney princesses. And she did a very simple dashboard that made her so curious to ask more questions. And that gave me the aha moment, which inspires me to give that moment to all our customers. Yeah.
Thank you. What is interesting in what we will ask Benjamin later is what the experience of Salesforce in assisting different governments, whether it's Indonesia, Singapore, Vietnam, and Malaysia. You're in charge of Southeast Asia. But the focus of today's discussion will be the Philippines. Now, I'd like to ask Secretary Dizon to make an opening statement however you want to start our conversations. We leave it up to it. Hindi po to structured. We want to be relaxed. But I'd like you to start how you want to start this conversation.
Good morning, everyone. Una-una po, thank you very much to Ambassador Mangyo, to Sir George, and to Sir Serge and the entire leadership, to Sir Ruben of the PCCI. Matagal na po tayong nagtatrabaho together, even during the most difficult of times, during the pandemic. We worked hard together to bring the economy back, to bring our people back to some form of normalcy after COVID-19. And it's actually the first time I think I've seen all of you since that time, no? In such a forum. Ang napapansin ko lang po pagka nagkakasama tayo, parang laging may crisis po, ano? Parang laging may malaking problema. And you know, I think the role of the private sector is so important, especially during this, I think, most difficult of times for our country, when our country is facing such a deep-seated issue of trust and confidence. I think that is the biggest hurdle that we have to overcome. Because of the unprecedented stealing of the people's money, which the President himself called out in front of the entire nation last July during his State of the Nation address. It has really opened the eyes of the nation that this sort of unbridled brazenness of stealing the people's money must come to an end. Ano po, no? Benjamin, I apologize if I'm going to be speaking in the local language. But
I warned him already.
I think the seriousness of our situation is something that government cannot solve alone. Hindi po kaya ni Presidente ito na siyang nag-iisa lang. Hindi ko po kaya ito. Hindi po kaya ng kabinete ito. Kailangan po namin kayo. Si Mr. Dennis Uy po, matagal ko na pong kaibigan. He has been a disruptor all his life. Yun po ang kailangan natin gawin ngayon. We have to disrupt this system that has failed all of us. It has failed. And it continues to fail. After every scandal, after every corruption scandal, akala natin yun na yung huli, we think that is the last, but it turns out it gets even worse. The Napoles scandal in 2014 15 is pocket change compared to what we have seen in the last couple of years. And this has been going on not just for years, but for decades in the DPWH. Alam niyo po, kahapon I was in the Senate and I was asked questions about the budget. And in my first statements, I had to tell the senators that when the President asked me to take this on, which is probably the most difficult decision I've ever made in my professional life, I had to tell the senators, because typically when you're in the Senate, you're a secretary, your job there is to defend your budget. Kailangan ipagtanggol po yung budget. No? I guess ako po medyo iba yung posisyon ko dahil wala po akong kinalaman doon sa budget na ginawang yun. I came in, it was already submitted to the Senate. I was asked to make some changes, primarily to remove flood control and to try to clean it up. But I told the senators, I said, the President, when he talked to me for the first time, did not tell me to defend DPWH. In fact, he told me the exact opposite. His words were, baguhin ang DPWH. Change DPWH from top to bottom, systemically, from within, and reform DPWH. So I went to the Senate yesterday not to defend the budget. I went to the Senate yesterday to ask the senators to help me reform the department. Because we have to change it. There is no going around it. Hindi po ako magpapaikot-ikot. The system in DPWH is a complete failure. And at the root of that failure is something that I think is part of our discussions today and has been part of your discussions for the last few days. And it lies at the heart of the reforms that PCCI wants to see, that Mr. Dennis Uy, who is one of your key members, has already tried to do throughout his professional life as a disruptor. We need to disrupt the system, and the way to disrupt the system is by making it more transparent. Kaya po nakapagnakaw siga Alcantara, siga Hernandez, siga Mendoza sa Bulacan, dahil po lahat ng ginagawa nila ay ginawa nila na nakasikreto lahat. Wala pong nakakaalam. Alam niyo po, pagpasok ko po sa DPWH, matatawa kayo, kasi isa lang po ang paulit-ulit kong naririnig when I was talking to undersecretaries, even former Secretary Bonoan. Yung phrase na, hindi po namin alam eh. Paulit-ulit ko po nakikita yan. And I'm sure, kung pinapanood niyo po yung mga hearings sa Senate, yun din po ang naririnig. Kahit nga po si Alcantara, di ba po, nung una, sabi niya, hindi daw niya alam yung ginagawa nung kanyang assistant district engineer. Pwede ba yun? Pwede bang hindi niya alam yun? Siya yung district engineer, yung ginagawa nung assistant niya, hindi niya alam. Well, ngayon alam natin na ngayon na nagsisinungaling siya. Kasi nagbago na siya ng storya eh. Ngayon, alam na niya bigla lahat. But transparency is at the heart, is at the root of that problem. Because if things are done in secret, if things are done in closed doors with a few people inside a room, then the people will never know. But that, I think, is what why you are all here today, why we are all here today, is to demand transparency from government, because that is really the only way. That is the only way. If everything is out in the open, especially if we apply new technologies like blockchain and all the power of artificial intelligence, hindi na po dapat mauulit ito eh. But it's not easy. Believe me. Totoo po yung sinabi ng ibang mga tao na siguro 10 taon na po ang tinanda ko sa loob ng 1 buwan lang. Totoo po yun. Nagagalit na po yung asawa ko kasi hindi na po ako nakakapagpagupit. Pero wala po eh, mahirap po talaga eh. Mahirap po. The The problems in DPWH are systemic. They are not just about people. Kahit na po magtanggalin ko lahat ng DPWH dyan, ng tao dyan, kung yung sistema po hindi mababago, if we don't make transparency part of the system, an integral part of the system, things will never change. So, yan po ang ang gusto ko po sanang simula ng ating diskusyon ngayon. And we need the private sector. Hindi yung kaya ng gobyerno ito na mag-isa. Mahirap po magreforma sa gobyerno. Mahirap, matagal. But I think with the private sector, with technology, kakayanin po natin yan. Salamat po.
Secretary Vince, palakpakan po natin. I can imagine not only failing to have a haircut. What is really very surprising, and I think this is really shocking for us, that we being told by the very actors at DPWH na hindi nila alam. And the good thing about those claims na hindi nila alam, we have digital technologies. So I'd like to first ask Secretary Vince, blockchain, for instance, is a favorite proposal already of Senator Bam and the others. No? What are so far the technologies you've been briefed about that you think that we can immediately apply to address these very issues on transparency? And then I will ask you, Benjamin, what are the concrete examples that Salesforce has done in other countries? So, Secretary Vince?
First of all, I think technology is crucial in institutionalizing the kinds of reforms that we want. Blockchain, as you know, we recently signed a memorandum of agreement with the Blockchain Council of the Philippines, of which PCCI is a member. It's one technology that I think will help because it provides a system where documents and information that are made public can be protected and secured, not from manipulation, from changes, but there are others. No? Kahapon lang po, no? We were discussing the bidding process. No? Kasi alam niyo naman po, napaka-rampant po ng biding-bidingan. No? Yung moro-moro sa pagbibid. Again, bakit po nagagawa yun? Nagagawa po yun dahil wala pong nagbabantay. At marami pong human intervention involved. And I think, you know, there's more than enough technology that is being used by the private sector for procurement, for tenders, that the government can use. Not just DPWH, but the entire government can use. So I think those are the two things that are most critical. No? And finally, simple things like just putting everything in the public view. Napaka-importante po nun. I'm working with the team po ni Mr. Dennis Uy. Napakabait po niya at pinahiram po niya yung iba niyang mga team sa atin para po gumawa ng transparency portal. Napaka-simpleng bagay, pero actually, napakahirap gawin sa gobyerno. Ang mga dokumento po ng gobyerno, at nandito nakikita ko po ang ating magaling na justice, si Justice Midas Marquez. No, ang transparency po, nasa batas po natin yan. No, kailangan po transparent ang gobyerno para malaman ng mga kababayan natin. Pero hindi po transparent ang gobyerno. And that transparency portal, once the President launches it, I think will be a model that can be used all throughout government. And that could have only been done with the help of the private sector.
Thank you, Secretary Vince. Blockchain, you've heard that on TV, on radio, but this time let's learn from Salesforce. Salesforce, not blockchain. I think they have other cloud solutions I'd like to share, and especially certain lessons from other countries as well.
All right, thanks. Thanks, Secretary Dizon, for sharing as well. And I feel that I can resonate a lot because I think in the past 8 years, I've been very involved with the Singapore government agencies, right? So that's where my focus in the past 7 years. In the past year, I've been leading the team in terms of the ASEAN team. And I would like to cite two specific examples, real examples, right? In terms of the analytics arm of Salesforce, which is Tableau, all right? Which is the self-service analytics capability, which is powered by AI, of course. First is the Singapore Civil Defense. We had a case of, in terms of civil defense, the staff are allowed to dispense drugs, right? These drugs may be simple aspirins, Panadols, right? For the people that they need to save when there's incidents, accidents, and when they are first responders. So there is a process where, as members of the Civil Defense Force, they can dispense the drug over the counter within their department, of course. And of course, within a certain limit. But an incident occurred is when they fail to actually spot there's a certain individual that actually over a long period of time has been collecting and dispensing this drug too much. In fact, eventually the investigation concluded this person had an addiction and overdose of a simple aspirin drug. All right, so that went under the covers. But now it's not a problem with Tableau. It gives the accountability and transparency and the inclusivity. So let me explain how it does it. So with the technology in place, automated alerts and backend systems there'll be guardrails that can be put in place so that not only human can monitor in terms of the drug dispense trend, and also there will be automated alerts based on the conditions that they put, right? So you don't need to have a human to judge that. That will be automatically flagged out so that such incidents do not occur anymore. The accountability side would be these information are also accessible by the individuals that are dispensing that drugs, right? And the trust and transparency, because it's visible on both ends. Obviously, you only see the trends and dispense of your own, all right? And what's also important is the auditability behind it. So with the Tableau platform in place, they can audit any time who has dispensed what drug, who is dispensing that drug, the quantity, and reason, all right? Whatever. So I'm just citing a few factors that you can actually audit and trace. So there's no escaping, but there's still that trust and inclusivity, right? There's no hiding behind, who is monitoring me and why am I being monitored from both ends, right? Whether is it the staff or the agency. The other example that is more on a national scale, and I think it will be more really relatable to Secretary Dizon, which is involving our Ministry of Transport. So quite a few years ago, our train system had an incident where there's a lot of train delays. Our trains some of our train lines are automated, but there's a certain 3-week period where the trains keep stalling. It stops in the middle of the track. So what it does, it causes a lot of disruption, not only to the people's lives, but to businesses. And it actually affects the trust in terms of the system. So what was triggered over a weekend, right, was a scrambling of hundreds of engineers. But on day one, they couldn't find the problem. So what we know today, on day two, the digital science team got a group of about 10 to 15 analysts and using the Tableau platform. What they found out was they could easily find, right, I'm just shortening the story, they could easily find, based on the data, patterns that form. And they realized there was this rogue train, and it's now famously in Singapore termed as the killer train. So every good train that passes this faulty train would break down. And this killer train would not stop moving and go on to stop every good train that passes it. But without data analytics, right, this will not be able to be solved within a Saturday and Sunday. So that was very impactful. It saves a lot of people's time, I think resources, and in fact, when you talk about cost, right, it's not only the dollar value, but the manpower cost to resolve it, and it gains back the people's trust as well. So I think technology and human have a lot to go hand in hand moving forward. Yeah.
Thank you, Benjamin. As Benjamin mentioned, digital technologies affect every part of our life. You know? Very clearly, you mentioned national security, the impact they use for national security concern about transport. But today, I think the most important topic with us is about accountability, trust of government. I don't like to put you in a spot, Chairman Dennis, but I think as Secretary Dizon mentioned, he needs the support of the private sector. So on behalf of the private sector, Chairman Dennis, I don't want to put you in the spot, but I'd like you to answer the question. What do you have here from the private sector that you can offer and suggest to Secretary Dennis on behalf of PCCI or the entire business sector? What is immediately available to DPWH?
I think Secretary Vince has already started doing some blockchain, right? So, which is a lot of blockchain organization helping the Secretary to make that platform available. From start of the budget in individual accounts that we track. No? So that initiated by Secretary already. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. From the beginning, sa simula pa lang, Secretary, iba-blockchain na po natin. From the beginning of the budget process up to the end. Maybe I'd like, this is a segue already, while this is designed only for a fireside talk, our leaders are requesting that it be an open forum. But malilate tayo ng konti kay Justice Minas. Is that okay? At So Perry, Executive Vice President Perry, you have a question, please be quick and
Secretary Vince, Perry Ferrer, Executive Vice President, the Philippine Chamber. Good morning. You mentioned earlier, and we know that changing the government is going to be very challenging. It might take 2 administrations. But with the technology now, we heard from our chairman, Dennis Uy, DPWH is national. So is the Philippine Chamber of Commerce. National kami, where in every sulok of the Philippines, while you are transitioning to full transparency, PCCI is here. Maybe you can use the private sector to be your eyes and ears nationwide. Yesterday, we heard you say about the classrooms. 22 lang ang classroom nagagawa versus 9,000 supposedly. But if our members are knowingly known that dapat may ginagawa na there should be a classroom being built here, we can always dial in. SEC, there's nothing happening here. Or SEC, it's not progressive. Use the private sector to be your eyes and also as your checkpoint in the projects. And if we can do that in DPWH, maybe we can do it in other government agencies. Thank you, Secretary.
Thank you, Perry.
Sir Perry, maraming salamat. Napakaganda po nung sinabi nyo. In fact, you know, last week, the President po met with the Catholic Bishops Conference. Kasama po ako doon sa meeting na yon. At actually, yan din po ang inoffer ng CBCP. At sa ngayon po, kami sa DPWH ay nakikipag-usap na po sa CBCP para tumulong po ang ating mahal na simbahan para i-monitor, tulungan. Kasi po, alam niyo po, 20,000 po ang proyekto ng DPWH at any given time. 20,000 projects at any given time. So it is really without technology and without partnerships with the church, with PCCI and other groups, it is impossible for the people in DPWH to monitor. Plus, we also need to monitor those who are monitoring. Kasi yan po ang nangyari dyan eh. No? Wala po talagang checks eh. No? Sasabihin ni district ganyan. O, ito po, no? Alam ko po, ito, maghihingi ako ng pasensya sa inyo. Kasi alam ko po, baka meron sa inyo nakapanood sa akin sa TV nung ako'y napamura, no? Sa galit. No? Ipapaliwanag ko lang po siguro yung sitwasyon nung panahon na yon. No? Ako po ay nagpunta sa Davao Occidental sa isang liblib na lugar kasama ni Mayor Benji Magalong. Yung pong district engineer doon, ang sabi niya, meron daw project, nasa akin na yung dokumento eh. Alam ko na nung 2022 pa lang, nabayaran na ng buo yun. Pero alam ko na rin na wala talagang project doon. So I asked the district engineer, I told him, simple question. Engineer, kung ikaw ba ay magpapagawa ng bahay, sarili mong pera, at yung bahay hindi pa tapos, magbabayad ka ba ng buo dun sa kontratista mo? Ang sagot po ng district engineer, naku sir, hindi po. Hindi po ako magbabayad. Ba't naman ako magbabayad? Hindi pa tapos. Bakit kako ito? Itong project mo dito. Nandito sa dokumento ko, inauthorize mo, bayaran na ng buo to noong 2022 pa eh. Ang sagot ba naman po sa akin, sir, nangako po kasi yung kontratista, natatapusin naman niya eh. Kaya ako binayaran ng buo. Talagang sino ba naman ang hindi mapapamura doon, hindi ba? Sino ba naman hindi mapapamura sa ganong klaseng sagot? So, ganyan po ang sitwasyon. So, we really need the help of the private sector, of the church, of civil society to help us monitor. And we need technology to help us monitor.
Okay? Yung mga pumapalakpak, yung mga chapters, you will be the watchdogs of DPWH. So, trabaho natin. Are you on? You're okay? You're okay with that? Palakpakan niyo sarili niyo. I'd like to ask now Chairman George to ask the next question.
Good morning, Secretary Vince. I tell you, if you look across, this is the hottest topic. Kaya you look at the attendance, it's the best attendance we have. Now, you know why? You know, a lot of them, we've been hearing from them, na yung sinabi mo kanina, that some of the projects in their area, they're not even aware of what you said earlier. And I think we're thankful that you mentioned that you're reaching out to the private sectors. I just came from an interview earlier. They're asking, ano bang gustong ng private sector na makita? And I mentioned that you're here with us in PCCI. And I said, if only that the ICI can be given the numbers of ghost project. Because for those ghost projects, I think, the ICI can take action kagad. They know how much is the ghost project, who are the contractors, who are the politicians that push for it, and they can take actions. I hope that through the sentiment of the private sector, sana man, yung restitution, billion ang pinag-usapan natin eh. So the restitution is very important, evidential to the